everyone, it's Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my non-spoiler review of Supergirl 2026. The movie released worldwide on the 26th of June this year, and it stars Millie Alcock, Jason Momoa, Eve Ridley, Emily Beecham and David Corenswet, and it was directed by Craig Gillespie. It's overall the second live-action movie within James Gunn's Chapter 1 of his DC Cinematic Universe, following his Superman movie from last year. Featuring the character Danvers, who, as we all know, is the famous cousin of Superman, and this movie was based on a 2021 comic miniseries titled Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, which saw Kara go on an intergalactic journey solo, who eventually aids an alien girl who is looking for revenge. And this film follows that outline closely, as we see Supergirl or Kara based in outer space, partying, getting drunk, living carefree, and very much reluctant to rejoin her cousin Clark back on planet Earth. Living a bracing life with her dog Crypto as her only companion, she eventually encounters a young girl in a bar named Ruthrye, who's searching for the brigand leader known as Krem, who murdered her parents when she was a young child. Sympathising with her story, Kara befriends Ruthrye and protects her earlier on from various vicious thugs. But Krem eventually catches up with them. He takes Kara's ship and he shoots Crypto with a poisoned dart. Having only 3 days to save him, Supergirl must track down Krem's gang and retrieve the antidote. Whilst Ruthrye continues to harbour desires for revenge, they also encounter the notorious bounty hunter known as Lobo, who himself is tracking down members of the Brigand gang. So when we look at Supergirl overall then, as an individual movie, it's sadly very average, underwhelming, and is just overall very disposable. It's not an absolute disaster, I would say, and nowhere near the notorious reputation that has preceded it, especially within the online negativity. But I definitely wouldn't say that this is one of the worst comic book movies of all time. It's definitely better than the recent efforts of the likes of the Marvels, Madam Web, Birds of Prey, or Blue Beetle. It's definitely not down in terms of that level. But at the same time, it never truly rises above its mediocre standard. Despite some hints of potential there, it never maximises those opportunities, and overall just feels very generic and forgettable. It's not having much in terms of originality either, as we get several tones of previous blockbusters, whether it would be Mad Max Furiosa, Suicide Squad, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, and the obvious one being Guardians of the Galaxy, which when you watch this film, it even feels more so like an actual sequel. But I think the biggest flaw of Supergirl itself is the actual script. Having Supergirl go on a 3-day quest to save her dog just isn't much of a compelling narrative. And as you continue to watch the film, you actually forget what she's actually setting out to do, because it's such a flimsy motivation for the character. Yes, we do have Ruthrye's revenge story, but even that feels redundant because she's a very weak character herself, so you're never truly invested. And whilst we do get sequences involving Kara's backstory, the sequences on Krypton and Argon City are probably the best without the entire story. You still feel that this is a plot that feels like an actual sequel to a character rather than an original, as if the movie already expects us to know and be familiar with this version of Kara, and it really could have done with about 10 to 15 minutes showing her origin story, perhaps on Earth, in terms of relationship with Clark first before going into outer space. And these flashbacks, whilst well made, are not strong enough to really attach you fully to the overall character. And we talk of the film's aesthetic, which was another very criticised element in all of the film's trailers, and it still has that very bronzed brown sepia tone, once more reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy and also Rebel Moon. And it's overall not very appealing. There are certain fight sequences where it's very difficult to make out exactly who is fighting who. And if you adapt in a story from a source material where a character is going on travelling around several places within the galaxy, you really would expect much more colour and vibrancy and energy within the overall aesthetic look. And once more, as with so many of these blockbusters today, we have the all too obvious green screen and CGI, and once more again it just takes you away from really getting immersed in all of the spectacle. I also hate the now typical 360 tracking shots that we get within movies today. This is when we have an elaborate fight sequence, and instead of shooting it from multiple angles and giving us huge wide shots to see everything that's going on, we have this constant 360 tracking motion where everything is spinning around as the characters take on multiple foes, and we have constant pop songs playing in the background instead of pure cinematic music. And the movie here has around 3 sequences like this, and again it drains any real scope for excitement, especially when we get to the climatic act. Once more, huge music playing in the background, just taking away any moments of suspense. Now in terms of the acting here, I think Millie Alcock is actually quite good in the lead role. She does have a natural charisma and confidence. She's able to give off those cynical vibes associated with this version of the character. But that's the problem, is that Millie here is not playing Supergirl. It feels like she's playing a completely different character. There's nothing here that is particularly inspiring or truly heroic about this particular iteration. Now we knew this going into this movie, the direction that they were taking, very much so from when she appeared in that end credit scene from the Superman film, and James Gunn's own sensibilities in terms of how he writes superhero characters. He prefers the anti-hero, imposter syndrome, very flawed and inner angsty type of personalities, and that's what we're getting here. So you can't really blame Millie too much for that overall. She's only playing as what she's been instructed. But again, as a character, the lack here is that there's no true character arc. Yes, she references her past and her own sense of loss in many ways, but once more, this is a character that is too nonchalant, so there's no real journey overall in terms of where she is at the beginning of the film as to where she ends up at the conclusion. And any fan of DC characters in general, having gone through previous iterations, especially those revolving around this Superman verse, will once more be very disappointed that we have yet again another deconstructive take on a very much more of an optimistic, hopeful superhero. And you really would think we would pass this phase of trying to drag down and make these characters much more vulnerable just to make them relatable, but it seems James Gunn is just stuck in the same flux as to really trying to drag these characters down as he feels that's the best way to showcase them, and that is completely not the case and the wrong choice for Supergirl. Now sadly, Ridley is very lightweight as Ruthrye, again a character that essentially should be the driving force behind the story, but her character again is so lightweight that you don't care about her cause, and once more you forget about it. As a villain, Krem is very one note, lacking any real depth or substance. He's overall just a numbskull and a thug, and you really can't understand why they could have chosen one of the more substantial villains, if not from Supergirl's world, but then definitely Superman's rogues gallery. We then talk of Jason Momoa's Lobo. Of course, he was really one of the biggest selling points throughout this trailer, throughout this project, and that is because knowing Lobo as a character and Jason Momoa's natural personality, it was always going to be a perfect fit for the character. The type of dude bro Lothario, alpha male, is absolutely suitable for playing Lobo. But in this movie here, he's okay, but a bit unnecessary. He doesn't really feel that integral to the story, and yes, you really could have taken him out of this plot and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. I really felt that we needed a few more scenes between him and Kara just to generate much more chemistry and a bond between the two characters, but he's a decent and lively presence. We do have to note that as we get to the climatic act, without spoiling, there is once more a really big controversial turn that Supergirl takes. All I would say is that if you were very unhappy with how Zack Snyder's Man of Steel concluded, then you will feel the same outrage here in terms of what happens with the character, but I will elaborate more in my spoiler review. And sadly, that is it really in terms of what is a very disappointing output for what I feel is a very good character. We've seen far more superior treatments of Supergirl in terms of the big screen and also in terms of animation, whilst I still felt that she didn't warrant a movie at this time in terms of where we are in the current universe of James Gunn. It still is a shame that it shows once more that James Gunn has no idea on how to translate and really showcase these characters in their best quality. He's still stuck in his own deconstructive tone and mentality for these characters, and it really is spoiling anything that's left of a potential great movie universe. And for me and for a lot of people, it highlights again that James Gunn truly wasn't the right man for a DC cinematic universe. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at Supergirl. In terms of my non-spoiler review, I will shortly be uploading a spoiler review where I'll get into far more depths as to what worked well and what didn't work quite as well within the movie, so look out for that shortly within the channel. But if you do have any other movies, television series, or any other topics for the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover in the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.